So today I was working on making a nose for the Tin Man. And to do this, first of all, I used some paper to create a shape, a pattern piece that would work for the shape of the nose that I wanted. I was recreating the one that they used in the London Palladium um, show, where it's kind of, I think, like a funnel, and it's got a little gap in the end, and it's quite kind of swoopy ish. So I cut out a general shape I thought would fit for that, and then tried turning it around and piecing it together, and then tweaking it by cutting off little bits here and there to make it the right shape. So for example, I had to make the curve from the top to the bottom deeper, and I had to make the end shorter and fit it in. And I also had to trim around the actual shape of the nose where it'll sit on the actor's face. And so once I was happy with that piece, I then cut it out of four shape. And once I'd done that, again, I rolled it up just to see kind of how it would look before I sewed it. And I realised I wanted it shorter again, so I trimmed it. And I was bearing in mind as I was doing this that when I steamed the four shape, it would shrink. So I was making sure to make it all a little bit bigger than I actually wanted it, as to when I steamed it, it would shrink. So once I was then happy with the shape again, I went and I sewed one seam down the middle on the machine, because I thought it was pretty better to do it in one piece rather than several little pieces. And once I sewed it, I checked it again, looking at someone's face and using the mannequin head to try and fit it as best I could to make it as comfortable as possible and also look as good as it could. And I made it a bit lower because I found it was too tall. So I did another seam further down and then cut the top off so it was shorter because it was too tall on the face. And then once I was happy with that, I decided to start and steam the four shape to make it harden. So it was a proper hard piece on the face that has structure and will be able to hold itself up. And when I was doing it, to help it keep its shape while I was steaming it, I pinned it onto the mannequin head, and I also put stuffing inside so I could keep a roundness to it, because otherwise as I was going it might have flattened out and become a lot thinner, but I wanted, especially with the hole in the bottom, it to be nice and round. So I stuffed it into that shape, and then I applied lots of steam to it to make it harden. And then once I'd hardened it, I tried it again on a face just to see how it was sitting. And I found that it needed more give around the nose, as it'd be quite uncomfortable, and it was also sitting a little bit higher. So once I trimmed that down, it sat a bit lower, more parallel with the nose, and also it was not obstructing their nostrils as much. It wouldn't be as annoying to them. And I made sure to especially steam and like iron the part closest to the nose so it wouldn't tickle them at all, because it needs to be comfortable for them to wear for the entire show. And then I looked at spray painting the nose and adding elastic to the top part to come down, and also a part that came around and connected here on the two sides of the face, so it was nice and secure and will sit securely on the actor's face while they're singing and dancing. And I also looked at adding two little cheek parts on either side, like in the London Palladium version. And to do this, I just cut two circles out of the same material I used for the Tin Man's body, but I used the softer one as it was just going to sit right on their face. I could have used four shape to match the nose, but it didn't need to be stiff like the nose needed to be. And also the material that I used would be softer and more comfortable for the actor's face. And then I spray painted it to have a nice even grey base layer and have it all on the elastic as well, so it all matched. And once I'd done that, I realised that it was the top part where it sat on the bridge of the nose would dig into the actor's face a bit, and also on the sides, especially where the elastic was joined, just because it would rub and maybe irritate a bit. So I placed a small little amount of soft material to cushion that and make it gentler and more comfortable so that they could wear it for a more extended period of time. And I just used a hand whip stitch around that to secure it. And then I looked at painting it more in detail. So I added a bit more depth with white paint and a bit more shadows with black paint, and I used just a grayscale to try and give it a bit more dimension. And I also added bolts on the side by just painting them, and I found it worked best if I started off with a circle of black and then went in with a mid-tone of grey, and then top it with a highlight, and then I could come back in and maybe refine the shadows on the black a bit. But I found it looked the most three-dimensional, popped out the most when I started with that like round base of black. And I did that on the elastic going up on the side of the head, and also I added some of that to the full bodysuit in the head part of the suit that would be visible to the audience. And I also looked at adding a bit more interest to the cheek parts, so they were a little bit more than just the circles. I added I moved my paintbrush in a circular motion just to give it a kind of rounder texture, and I added some of the painted bolts to them as well to make it a bit more interesting. And then I left that to dry for a while, and I moved on to adding some back pockets to the lion's overalls, and I did this the same way I added the front pockets. I cut them out, and this time I ironed them first rather than after, just to make it easier to sew and just to keep them flatter, so I didn't have to worry so much. And it made it a lot easier when I was pinning the pockets to the overalls to have ironed them first and ironed the hems in place and everything. So that's something I'm going to continue doing, because it made it a lot quicker and a lot easier by just changing the order that I did that step in.